You're tuned into the Dog Check here with Eric Metcalf, legend of the Cleveland Browns. I'm Joe DeLeone, hopping on with Eric today to discuss, which has been a very wild offseason so far for the Browns, particularly the recent trade for star quarterback Deshaun Watson. Eric, it's looking like a new era there in Cleveland after they went and got Deshaun Watson. How are you feeling after that trade?
I honestly feel good about it. I mean, when we're talking about the football part of it, you never know what's going to happen with everything else, the civil cases and all that. But when you're talking about the football part of it, I like the fact that the Browns took initiative and went and got a top 5 quarterback. When you're talking about one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and if everything's right, he is one of those guys. And I think by us trading for him, we got better.
Yeah, certainly got a lot better compared to what they were getting from Baker Mayfield. And there's obviously a couple different angles to look at this, which is the football side of things. It's an upgrade. You're getting a guy that was top 5 level, somebody that was helping a pretty poor roster with the Texans get to the playoffs. And now he's going to be surrounded by a lot of really, really nice pieces on offense and then supported by a really good defense. And then there's the other side of things that's currently dealing with the legal case and the civil case that's going to come from this. But overall, what do you think that Deshaun Watson brings to this team that Baker wasn't really able to provide?
I think when we're talking about the football field, I think there's nothing that he can't do. He's a proven winner in college. He won some games in the pros when they had some pieces around him, and he can just do everything. He can run the football. He can make all the throws. And when you have someone like that with a roster like we have, it opens it up so much more in the playbook. There's so many more things that we can do because that you can call anything and he can make it work. You can call a pass play on 3rd and 17. He might run for it, but if he has to throw for it, he can get those throws in there because of his arm strength and his ability. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. I mean, as far as him being on this roster with all these players, I'm looking for not only him coming with all this talent, but him allowing Stefanski to expand on his playbook. Because I feel like there were some things that we didn't do in the previous years because maybe he didn't trust Baker or we couldn't do it because Baker was hurt at times and things like that. But now when Deshaun gets on the field, he has a guy in which he can do everything. He can call all the plays that he has in his playbook, and hopefully they make it work.
Yeah, the big fold here is that Deshaun Watson, much better athlete than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, it's still a head scratcher for me how he was a first overall pick at his size and his physical limitations. But man, Deshaun Watson is a really, really good athlete.
To make all the Cleveland Browns fans upset by saying stuff like that. You know what you're saying right now. I get backlash when I say little things, and so I know you're gonna get it.
Well, look, I from the minute he was picked, I was confused, and I know that some Browns fans supported him and all that. Like, are you happy that he's gonna be removed, or like, are you maybe just it's part of the process? Like, where do you stand on that?
I would say I'm happy because we're getting a top 5 quarterback.
Okay.
Now, if we were talking about getting somebody at the same level, because Baker's one of those guys. I feel like with the roster that the Browns had, he could have won a lot of games, but everything has to be right. Mm-hmm. And so when everything isn't right, we saw what happened. That was last year. And so we talk about that he has a heart of a lion and he plays hurt, but so does everyone else. I don't get where people say we need to keep him because he plays hurt. Well, first of all, it was his left shoulder was hurt. That does not affect your decision making, right? That's where I had the problem. See, that's where I have the problem with Baker Mayfield. It's the decision making. Now, if you're hurt, okay, but if you're thrown into the other team, that's a problem because that's all in your decision making. So I think with Deshaun Watson, we don't have to worry about that as much. I mean, of course, he's going to throw interception because that's just the nature of the game. But at the same time, I think his decision making will be a lot better. And once again, his talent level is higher.
Yeah, talent level again. a lot higher than what you have with Baker Mayfield. And there's been proof in the output that you've gotten from Deshaun Watson. Like Baker was, he's done well, but you were talking about how everything needs to be perfect for him to succeed. And they made the playoffs one season with him there. And, he's shown that he's a decent starting quarterback, but you're getting a huge upgrade with Deshaun Watson. But the obvious other fold here that I've mentioned is the issues with the civil case. There's speculation that he might end up getting suspended for a period of time coming into this season. Are you like at all deterred by all that off-field stuff by this trade, or are you just more focused on how this improves the team?
Well, it's a tough situation,
right.
However you look at it, right? And so I'm pretty sure the Browns, when they made a trade like this, that they did all their due diligence in trying to find out what was going on with this case. When we're talking about it, the case itself, he wasn't criminally charged because they didn't find enough evidence. And so that alone should make people feel a little better, right? Of course, when you're talking about there's 22 women and something must have happened, you still have all these civil cases. Maybe they did, maybe there was something, maybe there wasn't. We'll never know because we were never in those rooms. But I think it's a situation where he is innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent, right? And we have to give him that opportunity and to plead his case, because he said from day one that he did not do this. And I know everyone says there's 22 women, so it's hard to believe. But my only question about this whole thing, and I hate to I don't want to be on the wrong side of what people think, but my only question is why none of this ever came out until he said he didn't want to play in Houston anymore. That's my only question about the whole deal. Once he said he didn't want to play in Houston anymore, then all this came out. And so, it's a tough situation because, I have daughters. I wouldn't want my daughter to be in a situation like that if that were the case. And so, you have to think about it, but you at the same time, you have to understand that someone could be telling you, someone could be lying. I've had friends who played in NFL who were accused of rape and things like that. And they said that has been with them for their entire life, and they never raped anyone. So it's a sticky situation on both sides of it.
Yeah, and so for anyone curious on who the heck I am, so I played college football too, not obviously at the level that you did. I played at an FCS program, and I've certainly been around guys that similar situations where there are accusations and you don't really know who to truly trust in those situations. But the biggest thing here is it's like you said, innocent until proven guilty. And in a legal proceeding, he was found not liable. There's still the civil cases that come from it. But right now, the Browns are moving forward with him expected to be the starting quarterback for 2022, at least for part of that season. Just from like your experience as a player, do you think that he's going to get suspended, or do you think that maybe it won't be for that long, or could this just be like a statement thing that the NFL tries to prove here?
I think they suspend him a few games. I mean, hopefully it's no more than 4, because when it's all said and done, it's a bad look for the Shield. And the NFL doesn't want to look bad in the eyes of fans, so they feel like they have to do something about it. So I mean, I can respect that. So I think he'll get suspended. I don't know, like I said, I don't know how many games, but hopefully it's 1 or 2. I know that's a big wish.
Yeah, that's very hopeful.
That's a big wish, but that's what I'm looking forward to. And we know he's going to do it. I mean that he's going to get suspended. The team knows that. I'm sure they're preparing for that, and they have Jacoby Brissett to back him up, who's a good player and can win some football games until he's able to come back as well.
So, with adding Deshaun Watson, we've dove into the impact that he's going to have for this offense and taking this team to the next level. If you had to give your listeners a projection, say he plays half the season, this upcoming season. Look, is this a playoff team this upcoming year, or do you think that's still a little maybe a little optimistic? What do you think?
No, they're a playoff team. They were a playoff team last year. If everything goes right, they just didn't win games they were supposed to win. And when in the course of the NFL season, There's going to be games that you're not supposed to win that you have to win.
Mhm.
And you're supposed to win every game that you're supposed to win. And we didn't do that throughout the course of the year. And that's why we were on the outside looking in. And because even with Baker hurt, even with us not playing, the defense not playing well in the beginning of the year until they gelled together, we still had an opportunity to go to the playoffs if we win in the last few weeks of the season. We just didn't take care of our business on the field. And like I said, this roster on paper is a loaded roster. We just have to go out there and duplicate that on the field in between those white lines, which we didn't do last year. So I think Deshaun Watson, if we can get through that little period where he's suspended and when he comes back, I think we have a very good shot of being in the playoffs and hopefully making a deep run.
Right. The only factor that comes into this that's going to complicate it until we know is how long is Deshaun Watson going to be suspended for and how many games do you lose him for. But, you hit the key thing here that Jacoby Brissett is a great backup quarterback option to be going into next season. He's going to have to play some games. That's a guarantee that's going to be happening next season. But everyone's healthy. If everyone's healthy, you have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and the full offensive line is at least maybe like 90% healthy for the first half of the season, and Jacoby's starting. That's still a dangerous team. Like what we had last year with Baker, obviously he was struggling, but there were a lot of other injuries all over the field that were also hurting them offensively. The offensive line wasn't fully healthy for that, for parts of last season. But man, if they start off and they have to deal with any major injuries, I totally agree with you. This is a playoff team without a doubt as soon as Deshaun Watson steps in.
Yeah, I mean, and we're talking about last year, once again, with Baker hurt, if we just turn around and hand the ball off maybe 10 more times a game, we win a lot of those games. So we didn't necessarily need a franchise quarterback to get us to the playoffs, which we proved in 2020. So we can just get through this by handing the ball off, barring those injuries that you're talking about. If we don't have any injuries, we still have a very good roster. We can run the football on anyone. And so I can go out there and hand it off to those guys back there. And so that's why I'm looking forward to not the fact that we can just go run the ball, but the fact that when Deshaun Watson starts playing, you really don't know what we're going to do, because at any moment we can throw the ball 30, 40 times if we had to. I'm not saying we should, but if we had to, we could win games throwing the ball 30 or 40 times. I didn't think we can do that in years past. I thought we should always pass the ball 25 times or less and hand it off the rest of those times. Now we can pass it 30 to 40 times a game and still win football games. So it makes it tough on the defense to game plan.
Coming from the Deshaun Watson side of things, you look at what he did in Houston with a shoddy offensive line. The best guy that he had blocking for him was Laramie Tunsil, who's fantastic. But the rest of those guys, it was just continuously swapping in and out different players. It was inconsistent, low-quality guys. He had an inconsistent rotation of running backs to rely on. He obviously had DeAndre Hopkins, but Bill O'Brien decided to send him off to Arizona. But, man, Deshaun Watson was really asked to do everything when he was in Houston. And now he's coming into a situation where you're saying they could throw the ball 30, 40 times. They probably don't need to because of the tandem of running backs, the receiving core, which is still needs some work and probably going to be worked on during the draft. And you've added Amari Cooper to that group. But if you look at all these pieces that they're surrounding him with, I'm also excited not only to see the projection for how Cleveland can do, but Deshaun Watson, once he takes over and is able to play after his inevitable suspension, I think that he can push himself into the MVP conversation. I don't think that's a stretch of the imagination at all.
I don't either. And so now when we get to that time, it's up to Stefanski to put these guys in a situation where everything looks good. We got a shiny new toy now. Now let's go play with it like it's supposed to be played with. You got to dial it up. You got to scheme it right. And so to give these guys an opportunity, because like you said, we have Amari Cooper. Sure, you're going to work on the receiving core in the draft or what have you. And this team can't help but get better with each piece they get from here on out, because the team is already a good team. It's the tough part about playing offense, especially, is doing it in between those white lines when those guys on the other side are moving just as fast, and they don't care about about hitting you in practice and everything, because in practice it's not the same. When it's on Sundays, it matters. And so those guys are, so we got to be able to do it in between those white lines. And like you said, once again, we have a quarterback who's a top 5. Now we have to see if our coaches, because we need him to scheme it up right, because you have all these little toys that you can play with at every position. How are you going to use them? How are you going to make sure that everyone's happy? How are you going to call play in the structure of the offense? How are you going to keep these guys happy and still go out there, move the ball, and win games?
Yeah, the ceiling is just so high for this offense, and it is going to go on the shoulders of that coaching staff to tap into all that talent that you have at those various positions. And I think you add one of these talented receivers in this year's draft class, that offense could be primed to really explode when that ends up happening. The one other piece to this now is what happens with Baker Mayfield, who is still on the roster. He was disgruntled when there were rumors of him possibly being moved in this Deshaun Watson trade. And now he wants out. He wanted to be sent to Indianapolis. That is off the table. His options are limited. Eric, I want to know from you, what were your thoughts on Baker's reaction to the situation? Do you think that he was justified in being upset, or was it a bit of an immature reaction to the situation?
I can go either way, because when I was in Cleveland, I felt like throughout my entire career, they brought running backs every year to replace me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't never said anything about it. I just knew that no one could do what I could do. So it was going to be hard for them to get rid of me. So I just went and played it out until I got to a point where I was upset about the amount of times I was getting the ball. And that's why I say I can go both ways, because once I got upset about not getting the ball, that's when I wanted to be traded, because I wanted to be out there participating just like everyone else. So, I wouldn't have ever written a letter to the fans and the city, but at the same time, I could understand why he would want to be out, especially when you're talking about bringing somebody in if you can't handle it. And when you're talking about bringing in somebody who is better than you, it makes it a little tougher. And so, I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't have written a letter or anything, just like Matt Ryan didn't. He knew it was inevitable for him, but and just went on about my business. But at the same time, I couldn't understand why someone would do it.
Right. I understand the side of being upset. Anyone who's played sports has been in those situations where there's a possibility somebody could be brought in to play over you, and to the full extent of doing it at the professional level, like you just talked about, and that stuff is so frustrating as a player. But heck, I look at what Matt Ryan just did. He dealt with all of that and all of the turmoil of possibly being traded, and he didn't say a word. He's been around for a lot longer, but we know that Matt Ryan has been a mature player throughout his career, and he's never been one to be outspoken. And he took it on the chin, and he just decided to wait and be patient. And now look where he is. He's in a position to probably win the AFC South pretty easily, and he's on a roster that has a really good offensive line, run game. He is set up perfectly. But instead, what you have with Baker, he makes a statement before he's even traded, a public statement on his own social media with the Notes app on his phone. And to me, that I think that was the step too far. It's okay to be upset, go to your agent, have those conversations, and say hey, we need to start moving and figuring stuff out now. But I wouldn't be shocked if teams were scared and deterred from making a move for him because of the way that he reacted.
I mean, I'm sure that they might be scared because of that, but at the same time, they know that they don't have to trade for him right now because the Browns are
right.
in a real spot. What are you going to do? Keep him on your roster? You're going to have to get rid of him, so they can wait for that. And, when we're talking about his agents and all the Baker's agents and all that, once again, I go back to, if I'm Baker's team, I don't play during this past year if I'm hurt. I wouldn't have played. I would have sat back in my own selfish mind and I hope they lost every game with Case Keenum and said, oh, when I was playing, we were 11-5, went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. I think you need me. You should probably pay me. But no, he went out there because he wanted to be tough for his team. It ended up getting worse week after week. Now the Browns are looking and say, we don't need to pay you. We're going to go pay this other guy who's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, $230 million. So you can go, buddy. Now he's in a bad situation because we thought Indy was going to be one of the teams that he can go to. I was looking at maybe the Seahawks, but they're talking about Drew Lock is going to be their guy. Atlanta, no. Carolina hasn't said a word about him, but once again, we got teams that can wait. They can wait to see what happens with Baker and the Browns, but at the same time, you don't see anybody grabbing at him because they feel like he's their guy, and for whatever whether it be on the field stuff or the letter and off the field stuff, we'll never know. But it's going to be a tough situation for him. And now, if he wants to be the player that he wants to be, had planned on being, he's going to have to work from the bottom to the top now.
I almost wonder if what happens with Baker, because like you just highlighted literally the only options remaining for him. Like there's really not much room for him to end up anywhere else because those teams haven't actively gone out to try and make a move for him yet. Indianapolis was his best shot to get traded somewhere now. Like the only other team that I could maybe think of is if like the Giants wanted to make a move for competition for Daniel Jones, but they already signed Tyrod Taylor. So that doesn't even seem entirely likely. I almost wonder if Baker in this situation is just going to sit out and then get traded when a team deals with a quarterback injury or something like that. Or maybe he's just cut. Like I don't see anyone that's going to go and make a move for him for the possible first round pick that the Browns are looking for getting him.
So I think the best case scenario for the rest of the league is for Baker to sit back and make the Browns cut him, right? I mean, because they're going to have to the cap space and all that. They're going to deal with the cap, and so that why would you give something for him? I mean, and then what are you going to give for him when they can't even give him away at this point? It's a tough situation. And then you have to think about, does Baker want to go to a situation and be a backup? Is he mentally tough enough to do that, where he can say, I'm gonna go in here, be a backup, and hopefully I get my chance and prove that I can really play in this league? And I don't know if that works out for him, because who wants to end up paying him all that money to be a backup? And then it seems like his ego is not going to allow him to do that as well.
Right. That was kind of what I was thinking when you bring up the backup conversation, is like, why do I want to bring up a guy who's been notably outspoken and not necessarily put out the results to justify being as outspoken as he is? You bring him in as a backup. How do you guarantee that he doesn't come in and start stirring things up and possibly causing problems? Because like this is a guy that has a big ego. There's no dancing around that. He's got a pretty big ego for who he is as a player. And I think because of that, if he does get cut, similar to the waiting until he gets traded for a team that deals with a quarterback injury, I feel like he might have to wait until somebody is dealing with a quarterback injury to sign somewhere.
Right. And it's a tough situation, because if you're Baker Mayfield and if you sit there and wait for someone to get hurt and no one gets hurt, then where are you as far as being in the NFL?
On the couch.
Yeah. So do I just try to go somewhere as a backup and hopefully I get my opportunity, or you just try to wait it out? It's a touch and go situation, because it's like he's like this close to being out the league. And that's crazy when you're talking about a guy who was a Heisman Trophy winner, #1 pick, has taken a team to the playoffs and set rookie records and all that. And we're talking about in year 4 after year 4, this is almost like until waiting on someone to get hurt. And if that doesn't happen, ooh, I don't know. It doesn't look good. It's not, especially with all these guys coming out next year.
Yeah, yeah. Next year's quarterback class is going to be
Right.
really freaking good. Like now's the time for him to sign because this
Right.
quarterback class is stinky. It's garbage. It's not very good. Nobody's going to be
Next
grabbing
year,
at these guys.
oh, next year these guys have been first round, no question. We're talking about high draft picks with all these guys. It's gonna be a tough situation. So I think if I'm Baker, my best advice would be to try to get on a team ASAP, go in there and show that you can play and make plays. Because like I said before, he can win football games if everything is right. So when you get into a camp or wherever you go, make sure they see that you can win. Don't go out there talking I'm Baker Mayfield and all this. I did this and all that. Just go out there and play football and show that you're a football player. And if you do that, you'll get an opportunity.
Yeah, he's certainly going to need the perfect chance, an opportunity for him to step into, and it might take some time for that to actually work out for Baker Mayfield. Eric, I want to wrap up with talking about some of the other free agent moves. No more Jarvis Landry. He is not going to be coming back to this team as they cut him during this free agency period. But they did go and make a move for Amari Cooper, which is a huge add to this group that has Donovan Peoples-Jones, who looked pretty good this past season. What do you think Amari Cooper brings to this receiving group that maybe Odell and Jarvis weren't able to?
Well, he's a great route runner. He doesn't say much, which is the one problem that I've had with him as a player, because he doesn't show the same fire that a lot of these receivers around the league do. But he still is productive and has been productive. I think well, they've all been injured throughout the course of their career, but I think he's a guy who tends to go about his business and he won't cause any problems in the locker room. Not to say that those guys did. I still think in order to get the best Amari Cooper, you have to have someone who's like a 1B to make him special, because that's how it was in Dallas. When he had other guys who were doing big things, he shined a lot. And so that's what I need somebody. And we have Donovan Peoples-Jones and we have other guys, but I still feel like we need another guy in that receiving room that people are scared of. And so because when you get that other guy, then it makes it easier on the number one. And so that's the only thing I worry about with him is just the fire. But at the same time, he's a great route runner, which a lot of times last year in our passing game, our receivers didn't get any much separation. And so being a great route runner, he can get a little more separation. We just got to, and now we have someone who can make those throws. And so I'm looking forward to big things with him, but I'd like to see him get him some help.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you in the sentiment that they need to add another player. And I think off the top of my head, they don't have that first round pick now because of the Deshaun Watson trade. So that makes it a little bit trickier trying to go and make that deal, or trying to go and get a receiver. I'm just trying to pull up to 2022 first round pick is gone.
Right.
I think that they still have their second round pick. So there's some good options there in the second round for them to draft a receiver. But they're going to need to add somebody to play along with Amari Cooper. I mean, Amari Cooper did well when he was with the Raiders, and it was really just him. And then he goes to Dallas, and he really shines when he has other players around him. And then he kind of gets a little outshine when CeeDee Lamb starts to really ascend into who he is now. But like, we'll have time to talk about the draft, I think, maybe on some later episodes. But are there any guys in this year's draft class that you're maybe eyeing, or just in general, like a certain player profile that they should be looking for in that extra receiver?
I need someone who can take the top off. I need someone to take the top off the defense. So you talk about all the guys from Ohio State, those type of guys, the Wilsons, Olaves, those dudes who can take the top off. That's what I want to see, because you now have a quarterback who can get it out there. And so if you have someone who can take the top off and make those big plays, then everybody, it makes it so much easier for Njoku coming under, Amari Cooper doing his thing, DPJ doing his thing, Harrison Bryant doing his thing. So that's what I'm saying. I need one of these guys, and they're gonna be because this class is so deep with receivers.
Mhm.
Some of these guys aren't going in the first round. They're gonna fall down, and they're gonna hate it, but they're good players. And so if we're able to get one later on, I think they can contribute.
Yeah, I think some people may not realize that there is a strong possibility that Chris Olave is available there at 44. There's a possibility of it because there are so many other positions in this class that I think that are going to be prioritized
Right.
over receiver, and that's going to slide some of these guys down. There's a bunch of really good guys at the top, and like you said, that's going to open things up. Like Jahan Dotson, I think fits exactly what you're hitting on right there. Like he would be perfect for what you're talking about. Somebody who could take the top off. But that's what this group is lacking is that speed. You got a good route runner with Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, bigger receiver. But I don't see in this group. The depth chart online says they have Jakeem Grant, but you would hope to maybe add somebody younger to be that speed, long speed type of receiver.
You got Schwartz, Anthony Schwartz, but I don't know how they're going to use him. But he's fast. But like I said, don't know how they're going to use him. But I think once again, if they get somebody in this draft class that we know is a flat out star, we have opportunity to do some things in the receiving room.
Well, folks, that's going to be it from us here on the Dog Check. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date. Follow us on social media. Eric, what's your Twitter handle?
Eric Metcalf 21.
Give Eric a follow at Joe DeLeone for me. Folks, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with more off-season coverage.